Welcome to the New Agility podcast. I'm Haran Rasalingam. I'm here today with Chris Davis and Adi Vadaganadam. Pleased to have you here both. And the topic we wanted to talk about today was AI and Agile. AI is the massive buzzword at the moment, in a way that Agile maybe used to be. But how do these two things come together? Adi, I know you've put quite a lot of work into this area. Maybe you can tell us a bit about what you see the relationship between AI and Agile.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, I do come from an Agile, DevOps, and engineering background myself. I think it's, if you go back to end of 2023, that's when most of us were caught in this big wave of ChatGPT, right? So all credit goes to Sam Altman, whether you like the character or not, in terms of just the way ChatGPT exploded onto our mind space, right? So you had ChatGPT, and suddenly the way people saw it was there was this magic box, and you can type in, and it just gives you an answer. In some cases, not exactly the answer we want, but in most cases, it sounded fairly meaningful and sensible, right? And then ever since, you have every other organization, company, everyone jumping on to the bandwagon, if you like. And then we have this big wave of AI hype that I think we are living in the midst of. Every company has an AI strategy. Everyone claims, probably true, that every employee has been trained on Gen AI. I think it's also worth remembering that we need to take a step back, that AI as a broad theme has existed before as well. It was not invented in 2023, but definitely Gen AI is I think, definitely the one. I was recently attending a conference where I thought one of the chief data scientists who's been in this field for a while explained the reason for the fascination well, saying that Gen AI is particularly focused on creating content. And that's whereas previously a lot of AI was seen as arcane, mostly to do with algorithms, numbers, statistics, whereas suddenly you have Gen AI doing content. And of course, that is irresistible if you're a leader, if you're in the leadership or CXO. Everyone loves content. So, and then that's how, we're all getting into that vortex of AI. And yeah, I think I'll take a pause here. What's your experience been, Haran?
Well, what I wanted to ask, I mean, have you seen any overlap between AI and Agile? Have you been able to leverage AI for Agile purposes, let's say?
Indeed, yeah. I think the most obvious one, again, I can't name clients, is where we've done prototypes of a chatbot, basically, but not just any chatbot. Imagine an opinionated chatbot that can give advice to various employees who are either at the beginning or in the halfway through adopting agile ways of working, which we know is an ongoing journey. You never finish with agility in that sense. But then, given that you have a number of enterprises who've been on the journey for a while, who've reduced their agile practitioners, coaches, etc., then you have this gap where people have some fairly basic questions, tactical questions, if you like. How many times should I do a stand-up every day? Or these questions such as that. Should I pick Kanban or Scrum, for example? But it can be as simple as a methodology question, or can be a lot more about, can you help me create a new project charter based on this context? Right?
So in a way, it could replace kind of agile guidance that a firm may have in their wiki, make it more interactive, perhaps.
Indeed, and again, typically a chatbot. Again, I'm using chatbot as a starting point. Can tap into all the firm or organizations in customized knowledge base, so that it can give you an answer that is relevant to that particular enterprise, right? So if you want to know, is this the right practice? The answer, as we know, always depends on the context. So you just don't want an answer, say, from ChatGPT per se, but then you want an answer that's relevant to that organizational context, and perhaps in some cases, even that particular department or the initiative that you're trying to do. And it still taps into all those wikis and the knowledge base that companies have for a while. So that's the most obvious place where people have been deploying that. But then that's just the starting point. Now you can then move forward. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, should we be worried about AI in terms of our jobs? Is it going to take over? What do you think?
I think there is a genuine risk to people's jobs in a lot of areas. Fundamentally, as Eddie mentioned, talk about data, for instance, data science, and the ability to do analysis is becoming one of those key skills for AI. What I did is some experiments on the back of the work that Adi was mentioning about his prototype. I did some work with the free version of ChatGPT on its ability to act like a professional coach rather than being the opinionated thing, just spouting information that was contextual to the organization, but something a bit more general. I asked it to respond to questions in a coaching manner. And it literally asked me questions. So I, as the ignorant team member, was being asked questions by the chatbot and saying, "Oh, how do you figure this out?" Yeah, good question. And I was learning contextually because the chatbot was playing the coach, and I found it really, really threatening because that's kind of where part of my expertise comes from. That intersection of agility and coaching is where my expertise over the last 10 years or so has come from. And now
you found that the AI bot was able to ask questions and then adapt to whatever your response was. Okay.
Yeah, because what I was playing devil's advocate with it, and a lot of things I was doing was because when it asked me about, I can't remember what the even topic was, something about prioritization or something, and it would say, well, how do you prioritize at the moment? I said, well, here's what we do. You say, yeah, I can see that's not effective, but what would you think was the most effective way of doing it? I said, well, here's what we would like to do ideally. And it would say, well, what's stopping you from doing that? And I said, well, here's what we got now. It was literally this backward and forward conversation. And just by making up a scenario that I have, from people that I have worked with in the past and putting that to the chatbot, it was coming up with questions that were forcing me to think deeper into the scenario I'd imagined. But it's in a realistic scenario, I can honestly see companies saying, who needs Scrum Masters? Who needs Agile coaches? Right? I've got this tool here. The trick, I think, is, are there people within enough companies who have the knowledge to be able to do that and not just train the chatbot on knowledge, but also get it to act in the right way, rather than just be opinionated and give answers to things? How does it act like a coach and give questions? Because I think that's another dimension of this, and that's perfectly feasible. And yes, jobs can be at risk. We've already seen how a number of opinions about how good AI tools are in coding. And there's various opinions on that. Adi, I'd like to hear your view on just how good are AI tools at the moment at generating good code.
Oh, okay. I think obviously we need to probably get an experienced engineer. I'm a rusty,
right.
I call myself. I've been in coding space for maybe 5 or 6 years, and then, as they say, career took me in a different direction. But I've always been hands-on, but not production ready. But I think what AI-enabled tools, such as the most obvious one being Microsoft's Copilot. There are many others like Cursor. There's what's known as agentic IDEs. Replit is another one. I'm just giving off a few examples, but it has done is I think it's, at least for my use case, if you like, for a Rusty developer, I think it's been really godsend. So I can start with something and then give a fairly detailed description saying, let's start with this. And then iteratively, I can keep adding features to it. I've used, as I mentioned, various tools like Bolt or Vercel. All you have to do is just search for AI coding tools, and you'll get a big list. But I think it has really cut down the iteration time. So I was able to, within a short period, like a few hours, I was able to create this was for a hackathon for 11 Labs that I did recently. I think I spent just a weekend, maybe 10 or 12 hours, to create a multimodal AI-based content creator app. In the sense, you can, as a parent, you could just give it a one line saying, can you help create a short learning video on say earthquakes, for instance, targeted at say 8-year-olds, and then using obviously various AI text-based options, and also image generation and video generation. And then I was able to combine all that and create this short 3-minute clip of video content. And I was able to do this all, a Rusty developer again, mind you, within in about say 10 hours or so. And I think the latest thing, which has its critics as well, is this whole idea of vibe coding. I don't know if you ever heard of that, if you look it up.
Only recently, but yes, I have heard the term. Yeah, basically, does that mean you basically are creating code without actually any knowledge of coding?
I think that's what vibe coding says. I think a lot of people are trying to do that. There are again apps that allow you to do that. I think Lovable is one good one that people are using. There's a combination of I think AI and no code, which is also an interesting combination. So I've seen good demos from, again, there are a number of, we're not endorsing any of this, but the ones that come to my mind, I've seen where one from OutSystems, for instance, which combines AI with this. So so I think again, there are different categories here. It's definitely makes life easier for people who can think like a programmer, but it's also opening up opportunities to people who are not that technical. There is a downside to this as well. I think we need to be careful in the sense, most likely we are going to be doing, I think it's great for doing those early prototypes or your first version or an MVP. I think going from there to actually making it production ready and secure and safe and various non-functional characteristics, I think that's a different leap altogether. I think we need to be careful. I've seen worst examples where someone used AI, built an app, and then realized that his web app was hacked into and his API keys were used by someone else because it was not secure
Some
enough.
things never change. Anyway, that's really interesting what you said there, Adi. So there's clearly we're in a sort of phase of huge exploration about the possibilities and the potential there is. I mean, I was trying out with generating videos. You can give yourself a clip of yourself and then upload a script, and it will have you speaking that script in the style of the video that you uploaded. And it was really quite impressive. I mean, you could still see it becomes a little bit repetitive after a while because it's kind of mimicking your same actions. But to be honest, you can see within a few years' time, that will be extraordinary. And so I thought, well, another thing about, if you think of an agile transformation and sort of the guidance and the training that we put out and all these documents could be very quickly converted into video format in a much more digestible way. I mean, I think it's quite extraordinary.
Absolutely. I think one of the, to build on that, one of the key things I think is where AI tools can be most valuable is in being at the difference, because if you have a human coach or consultant, what they are typically doing is teaching whatever framework or frameworks they are most knowledgeable in, right? So there's a limitation from the organization's perspective. AI tools can transcend that boundary very, very easily by combining all of the knowledge of all of the agile frameworks that are available and coming up with something that is truly framework agnostic, but is then contextual. So you can ask it, how do I solve this current problem, right? What framework do I best use, or what practices do I use to solve this problem? Here's what I want to do. How do I use that? How do I do that? And it can come up with a number of answers for you without any specific framework. So I think there's a huge possibility here that AI might also see not just the death of the agile coach and roles, but also the death of agile frameworks. It's going to be a bit more about how do we apply agility as a concept,
Yes.
within context.
I think you've kind of touched on something I wanted to go into. If you think about how when Agile came on the scene, everyone said, "Oh, project managers aren't needed anymore," or
Yeah, true.
business analysts we don't need," and so suddenly there was like a feeling, a sort of an existential threat to certain roles.
Yeah.
And I think AI has a similar kind of impact, let's say. And I think maybe the question is, it's a question between resisting AI and trying to get on in spite of it, or going with the wave.
Mhm.
Addy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I saw this quote. It says, "Don't ever fight a mega trend. Always use it as a tailwind." I quite like that in that sense. And if I connect
Say
this
that
back,
again. Don't fight a mega trend.
always use it as a tailwind.
Always use it as a tailwind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So I quite like that idea. Chris, you mentioned about Scrum Masters, right? Let's just take one role as an example. We have this sort of the next level of evolution of AI called agentic AI, which in simple terms is essentially autonomous apps that you can give away instructions and they can iterate through based on the role that they're supposed to perform, and they can probably even bounce ideas with other agents out there, and within the guardrails, of course, and do a task for you. Now, if you think of what a Scrum Master does, some of the work, whether we like it or not, or whether they like it or not, is very admin oriented, right? So chasing people, have you done the Jira ticket updates?
I'll err on the not side there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So creating those reports, or very end of week or end of sprint reports, or whatever is the format. So there's lots of admin work there. And if you can imagine, if you give every Scrum Master, Batman, a Robin agent that can take away all the admin work, then your Scrum Master can actually perhaps wear the hat of a team coach, right? So perhaps look at more of the bits that you ideally want a Scrum Master to look into, right? So I chase those impediments, help people out, look at the people aspect of it, which usually gets moved to the sideline because you're too busy trying to do the admin part of your Scrum Master's job.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful viewpoint, actually, one that I'd overlooked, and it's the for that understanding of how a group of people interacting.
Yeah.
No AI can do that, right? Unless you've got a physical robot that's watching people. Until that point, it requires a human in
Give
the
it
room,
10
so to
years.
speak.
Yeah.
10 years,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But for this decade at least, it's going to take a person in the room, to watch it, even if it's in a virtual room. It takes somebody to look at and to see what people are doing and to think about the the dynamics between people, think about the processes they're following, and to analyze and to challenge those things. That, I think you're right, will still require a human being for a few years
Let
yet.
me be a slight fly in the ointment here. Let's suppose you do have these AI agents that can
Mhm.
take away all the admin pain. My guess is that most companies would not suddenly think, "Oh, this frees up the Scrum Master to do proper coaching." They'll just say,
No.
"We don't need a Scrum Master anymore because the admin's taken care of." I think. Do you think there's any truth in that? That the human element, the coaching, the dynamics is something that most firms probably not even willing to pay for. It's just a nice added extra by somebody who happens to be
Yeah.
doing the admin.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think that's always going to be the difficult sell in terms of the human element, that the coaching, the value of coaching has always been difficult to justify, right? So people bought it because it comes with the ability to do the admin work as well.
I do find that, yeah, I have found that a number of times. I mean, I last year, sometime late last year, middle of last year, I remember being in a conversation with someone, a senior manager, and he made the comment that, we're all adults here. No one wants to be coached, which completely took me aback for a while, because some of the largest and most successful organizations in the world have coaching programs for their executives. It's a perk. It's something that helps their own personal and development, and they're improving their skills and the way they operate. So for someone to say, we're adults, therefore we don't need coaching, it shows just how people, I think, are not, or rather the benefits of coaching and what coaching really is, I think, is not understood by the majority of the population, let's say.
Yes,
And maybe there's
unless they're in some special thing like a
some of that
sport
sort of,
or a music. Nobody minds having a sports coach or a musical coach.
and even right, sure. Now we're kind of going a bit off on a tangent, but that comes down to the nature of the type of coaching that you're doing, right? Because on the one hand, there are coaches who required to have expertise in the subject. So sports coaches typically, I could not be a coach for a cricket team because I last played cricket when I was about 7. No, I have no credibility, no authority, and no skills to be able to coach them. But could I be a professional coach to a business team? Absolutely. I require no context expertise because I'm not there as a consultant or a mentor even. I'm there as a coach, and that's a completely different skill set. I think this is where the
well, your skill set is being human, isn't it? Your experience is being human.
Yes, it's being able to really listen to people and ask questions, and to a certain extent, coming back on the topic again, that's not outside the bounds of what AI can do today. So a lot of those skills for consultancy, for mentorship, for coaching, AI is already capable of doing an awful lot of that.
So let me challenge that because we can see that a coach can a bot can very much effectively mimic a coach, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So my question I have, throw it out there, I haven't really thought it through, is a question of authenticity. What's the difference between being coached by someone you know to be human versus someone you know not to be a someone? it's a program. I wonder what effect that has on you as a person, psychologically, in terms of your willingness to respond to the coaching. Adi, what do you think about it from an authenticity point of view?
Yeah. I think when we say AI, we always refer to as artificial intelligence, but I think increasingly people are saying treat this as augmented intelligence. In many ways, AI is just giving you back information that already exists, but in a far more digestible way. So you still need to inject that authenticity into those relationships, into conversations. You still need to have, say, a cup of coffee with that 10x developer, but who refuses to work with the team, for example.
I can perfectly imagine a time when they'll be sitting there and a coffee dispenser will be served. Speak to me.
If you imagine a conversation between, let's say, an AI coach and let's take the same scenario of a 10x developer who's very good at his or her job, but then probably not so much at working with the team, with the rest of the team. I suspect most likely after a few conversations, the AI agent coach will probably just look up all the work that the developer has done, and then probably starts criticizing the developer, saying, I don't know why you're feeling so confident about. So.
You coded like that, jeez.
If I may, I mentioned a few minutes ago about how an experiment I conducted through ChatGPT about how to act as a coach, and I'll talk you through briefly the way it does the work. What I said to it was, I want you to act in that. Sorry, hold on a second. Yeah, you're an AI LLM specializing in professional coaching. I want you to act in that role and hold a coaching conversation with me. I'll present a scenario that I'm trying to resolve, and I want you to help me explore the situation, gain clarity, and find my own answers as you ask me powerful questions. And it said, okay, that's great. I'll take the coaching approach, blah, blah. And I started the scenario saying, I'm a development team leader, and I have been challenged to prioritize the team's work by value, but I don't know how to do that. The reply I got was, that's a great challenge to explore. To start, what does value mean to you and your team in the context of your work?
Yes.
All right. So you can see this is not just, right, here's what this method has told it to do. I've told it to ask me questions, and it's asking me some very pertinent, good questions. So I told him about this is what we do. And he said, that makes sense. Your team delivers value in multiple ways. How do you currently decide what to work on first when balancing new projects, updates, and bug fixes? I gave him a response, and then it says, sounds like urgency and customer pressure are key drivers. What challenges or frustrations arise from your working this way? You get the feel for the types of questions it's asking.
Yeah.
That's what a professional coach does. It requires, from the questions, it requires no real expertise in Agile frameworks whatsoever.
I mean, funnily enough, I mean, I actually wrote a program like this, or kind of, I had a book, I had a ZX Spectrum back in the day, and a book, Artificial Intelligence on Your ZX Spectrum. I was mostly interested in, playing chess, how to write a chess program and all that. We'll come on to that in a minute. But this particular program it was talking about was like I don't know if they called it a therapist, but it was effectively you would put an input in to say what your problem is, and it would just use the words of your sentence and reframe it as a question. So,
Okay.
so I'm feeling rough today. Oh, you're feeling rough. Tell me about that. And it was not complex at all. It was just kind of syntax management. Switching around the chunks of the phrases. So it's surprisingly easy to do something like that, to sort of reflect back in that way. But also on the topic of chess programs, because I first got into artificial intelligence, back in the 80s when chess programs were coming out, and at the time we thought that no computer could ever beat a human. We thought it was now it just my phone can beat me, or beat not just me, but beat any person in the world, even the very top players in the world.
I totally remember that personal arrogance you have about, no little bot can do that. And I remember putting it on like level 3 and being surprised when it beat me very, very easily. Oh, okay.
But the interesting thing is, if you're playing chess against a computer, it's a very different experience to playing a human, because when you're playing a human, you subconsciously know that they're fallible in some way, right? They're that they may be tired, or they may be getting frustrated, or they may be tense. But when you're playing against an engine these days, because they can see everything, you just know that you're up against a brick wall, and so that you almost give up. Psychologically, you almost give up. So it's an interesting dynamic, that knowing that you're playing against an engine just affects you psychologically. So I'm just wondering if the same would apply if you're interacting with an AI agent or bot or something like that. Whether you just think, oh, there's no point in me arguing because they know the answers, or you know what I mean. It'd be less.
Indeed, yeah. I think you can. There's always a temptation as a human to just end the chat, because you're on.
Shut up. Leave me alone.
So let's end the chat, and then you probably don't want to go down the route where the organization or the manager insists that here's your punishment. Go away and talk to the Chris's coach bot for 15 minutes.
I mean, are we actually moving to a period? I mean, let's look at software development, Agile, where there would be very few humans involved in the delivery of anything, and so the whole idea of having a team or anything, it would kind of become redundant. You just got this idea, I want to deliver this, set off these bots to create whatever I need, and they will update me on progress, etc. Could that be around the corner?
I think I don't know about the future. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but what we can see is companies are seeing fairly good benefits in using AI-based tools. Even the most conservative estimates give at least 15 to 20% savings on productivity in terms of developers being able to do this. So I think you can see that happening. If you remember, there's this thing called T-shaped skills that I believe IDEO, the Italian design company, introduced, and then more recently we have this thing called E-shaped skills, where the idea is you need to be a generalist in terms of knowledge work, but then pick a few specialist areas. I suspect we are heading in that direction where instead of having an army of developers, you'd probably have special forces of a smaller group of people with diverse skills, enabled by a whole bunch of AI agents who are part of your team, and then probably generating good quality production grade software or even content.
But would these humans be the ones kind of shaping how the bots behave effectively? You know what I mean?
Indeed,
So you're training
yeah.
them.
Yeah, indeed. And I think there is this principle of human in the middle loop, especially for agentic AI. A lot of enterprises are insisting on, especially I think regulators are keen on that. So if it's just AI that has completely taken a decision or created a piece of code, for instance, autonomously, then who is responsible for the actions of that particular piece?
Oh yes, that's an
That
interesting one.
raises a bigger question. So
The
I think
single ringable neck.
indeed,
Yeah.
always, yeah. So another prototype that I was working recently was something around architecture memos, or architecture, also known as architecture decision records. And organizations are require their architects to create an ADR to justify any key architecture decision, right? Why we are moving away from, say, MQ to Kafka or whatever decisions you take, and they can be even business-oriented decisions as well. And this app would, again, AI based, would validate your ADRs, but then and even create ADRs. Now, creating
Yeah.
ADRs will get interesting. So
I was
you
thinking a minute ago.
loop in such a when you're just letting AI to create your entire architecture without human in the loop, then it raises serious regulatory questions. So
Yeah, I can understand that. It's not. I don't see it being a simple way. There's at least within the next few years for us to hand over, an entire product development project. Here, build me a new project and hand that over to AI completely. I don't see that happening just yet. So the need for humans in the loop, definitely. But there is clearly, we are either there or very close to there, being able to utilize the unique ability for AI tools to synthesize a vast quantity of information and pick what they need to do. So, for example, if we were to ask let's generate a new AI tool, and we give it all the expertise in the world about software architecture, modern programming, languages, tools, techniques, and so forth, and we give it techniques like, from modern DevOps and Agile and Lean, and you give it all this information and say, right, here's what you want now. Here's a specification effectively for all the user stories or the backlog of features that we want. Build that application in accordance with this overall architecture that we have established for our organization. Go, right? There's a couple of articles that I've read over the last few months, and which gave me completely different ideas of how that would go. And one of them said, absolutely, it would definitely happen. They'd generate all the code and it would work. But the other side of the coin was, one guy was saying, I have seen what code AI tools generate, and it's rubbish. Yes, it might work for 10 minutes, but you throw in something it doesn't expect, and it would fail very, very quickly.
So it reminds me of Dreamweaver to create HTML. When you looked at the code under the hood, it was like,
Yeah, exactly. But so I think we're at the baby stage. We're at the toddler stage almost of development of AI tools. But from what it can do right now, the future is fairly obvious. What it will be able to do in the future is going to be, massive. I mean, from right now, we've got tools before AI even come about where a development team can spin up an environment, run some tests in that environment, and then throw it away. Right? We don't need it anymore, decommission it. We're going to be able to do the same thing with software applications in major companies. So, take a bank or insurance company or something. They will very soon be able to say, well, I want to try this product. Build the product, run it in production, see if how well it works, get the the usage statistic from it, and then either decommission it or carry on and build more things on it. That can potentially almost be entirely automated in the very short space of time. I think we'll be there or thereabouts.
Closing thoughts then, Chris. How do you see AI helping you in the next year?
How it's helping me? I think I've talked a little bit about that. I'm trying to create. I'm busy developing and writing about a new approach to agility that will utilize or potentially utilize an AI chatbot, as I described it through the experiment I was talking about with ChatGPT, one that acts as a professional coach with all the background knowledge of agile methods and tools and so forth, and can act as a professional coach to development teams. The idea being that organizations don't really want to spend a lot on a lot of people. Consultancies bringing 50 people in, the whole land and expand stuff. People don't want to do that anymore. So here's some principles that can help you become agile, and here's a tool that will allow you to do that, and build agility from the bottom up within the context of your own company by simply asking you questions rather than telling you what to do. I think that will be a very useful way. I'm trying to create that at the moment.
Sounds fantastic. How about you, Adi? AI for you over the next year?
Oh, I'm constantly tinkering with various AI tools. I think the difficult part is not to get overexcited because there's far too much change. So I think you just go away for 1 week and come back, you turn on, and then you realize the world has changed radically. And I think that the biggest risk is I think constantly playing around with various tools instead of having a focus. I think there's this one liner from Dark Knight where the Joker says, I'm like a dog that chases cars. I wouldn't know what to do once I catch a car. So I think
love it.
So you have to be careful in the sense that all this exploration is great, but I think pick a few use cases, make them work. I think I need to work on the discipline to get there myself.
Yeah, you'll get a bot to help you with that. Don't worry. Yes. Chris, Adi, thanks very much. I think we'll definitely have to have another talk about AI, probably 6 months down the line, and see where we are.
Well, if Eddie's right, we might have to do it next week.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying 6 months. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Great talking to you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
You too. Bye next time.